It was my first Halloween alone in my new house. I'd bought a couple of bags of candy, carved a pumpkin, and left the porch light on, feeling a bit nostalgic for the Halloweens of my childhood. The evening was pretty standard. Waves of kids in superhero and princess costumes came and went. By 9 o'clock, the street had gone quiet. I figured the night was over, so I turned off the porch light and settled onto the couch to watch a movie. Around 10:30, the doorbell rang. It was a single sharp chime that cut through the silence of the house. I was hesitant. It was late for trick-or-treaters, but I figured it was probably just a last-minute group of teenagers. I grabbed the half-empty bowl of candy and walked to the door, peering through the peephole. All I could see was a small shape, barely visible in the dim moonlight. It looked like a young child, standing alone. Sighing, I unlocked the door and pulled it open. "Sorry, kid, you're a little..." The words died in my throat. The child standing on my porch was small, maybe 7 or 8 years old, but his costume... It wasn't a monster or a ghost. It was a memory. My memory. When I was 6, my family went on a trip to a lake. My cousin Mark and I were playing in the shallow water with our bright red water wings. I dared him to swim out to a small buoy. He got tangled in something beneath the surface, thick, slimy weeds that wrapped around his legs. I panicked and swam back to shore, screaming for help. By the time my uncle pulled him out, it was too late. I never told anyone I was the one who dared him. I never told anyone I just left him there. The child on my porch was wearing a faded blue swimsuit, identical to the one Mark had worn that day. One of his arms had a single, deflated red water wing hanging limply from it. His skin was painted a pale bluish gray, and dark stringy pieces of what looked like real pondweed were tangled in his hair and draped over his shoulders. He wasn't wearing a mask, but his face was blank, his eyes dark and empty. He just stood there, holding a plastic pumpkin bucket, saying nothing. My blood ran cold. My entire body locked up. This wasn't possible. It was a secret I had buried for over 20 years. No one knew the details. No one knew about the water wing, or the weeds, or the dare. I tried to speak, to ask who he was, but all that came out was a choked whisper. The child slowly lifted his head, his dark eyes fixing on mine. He didn't say trick or treat. In a quiet, raspy voice that sounded like water being dragged through sand, he said just one thing. "You left me." I screamed and slammed the door, fumbling with the deadbolt until it clicked into place. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. I scrambled back from the door, my eyes locked on the peephole. I had to know if he was still there. Forcing my shaking legs to move, I crept back and pressed my eye to the lens. He was still there. Not moving. Not looking around. Just standing perfectly still, facing my door. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed my phone and dialed 911. My voice was shaking so badly I could barely get the words out. The operator told me to stay on the line and that a car was on its way. The minutes stretched into an eternity. I stayed huddled in the kitchen, too terrified to look through the peephole again. When the police finally arrived, their flashing lights washing my living room in blue and red, the child was gone. They swept the area with their flashlights, checking my yard, the street, and my neighbors' properties. They found nothing. No candy bucket, no footprints, nothing. One of the officers suggested it was just an elaborate, cruel prank, but he couldn't explain how anyone would know. I never found out who that child was, or how he knew my secret. I don't think I want to. The memory of that day at the lake is no longer just a ghost in my mind. Someone else has it now. Someone knows what I did. And every Halloween, I turn off all the lights, lock the doors, and sit in silence, praying the doorbell doesn't ring.